Dan joins us now from ADIPEC and Abu Dhabi. Dan, amazing timing for this conference right on the heels of COP26 in Glasgow. Where has the conversation gone from what happened in Glasgow? What have been the main debates at the conference so far?
Hi, Juliana. Well, as you heard in Hadley's conversation there, the primary focus among the oil and gas executives that we've been speaking to on the ground here at ADIPEC is what's going to happen next with prices as we see oil back above $80 a barrel. And of course, what is going to be meaningfully achieved after COP26. Of course, what we're going to see now is the climate conversation very much coming into the MENA region, with COP27 set to be hosted in Egypt and COP28 coming to the UAE. So oil and gas executives very much focused on climate as we speak. Of course, when it comes to the outlook for oil prices, many are quite optimistic as well. I had the opportunity to speak with the notable market commentator Mohamed El-Erian, Chief Economic Advisor at Allianz, in a 45-minute conversation on stage yesterday discussing a range of issues. I asked him about the prospect for 100 USD oil, which is something that has really come into the market vernacular over the past few months as we see the oil market recovery continuing to take shape. He threw some cold water on the idea that we would see 100 USD oil anytime soon. However, he did say we can't rule it out. Listen into some of this exchange.
If you were to focus only on the supply side, you could get to oil at 100 because there's been underinvestment in the industry in general, and demand will stay robust. But if you look at what's happening on demand side, there you get some questions. Demand is robust today, but will it be robust in 6 months' time? And there's really big questions, both in terms of demand destruction, people buying less because prices are higher, and in terms of whether policy becomes contractionary or not.
Mohamed El-Erian there. It was also interesting to get his view on inflation. We know that this is something that has been on his mind for several months now. He's been really vocal in calling out the transitory nature of inflation, at least according to the US Federal Reserve. He says the Fed is getting it wrong and they need to be more attuned to realities on the ground. He says that is probably the primary risk for the global economic recovery heading into 2022. I also had the chance here to speak with the CEO of IBM, and I asked him what's keeping him awake at nighttime. Is he concerned about the inflation narrative? And more broadly, what other risks should investors be attuned to as we track into the start of a new year? Here's how he responded.
Geopolitics always comes into play, and I would turn around and say, but we have no control of that, so I'm going to go punt that on the side. First, let's acknowledge we still have a pandemic upon us. It's not yet an endemic. So I think if some weird new variant comes around, even worse than Delta, that would bother me, because I think it'll cause a temporary, not a permanent slowdown. I have so much confidence. We have the correct protocols, we have vaccines, we can go fine-tune these vaccines. So I think that there is a way, but it could cause a temporary slowdown. Then with all of the liquidity and the fears of inflation raising its head, that can cause some chaos in this thing. By the way, I don't think that's a 2022 threat. That's probably later than 2022.
You're not worried about inflation right now?
I'm always worried about it, but I'm not sure it'll have an impact on the business in 2022. So there's a subtle difference between the question was, what am I worried about the business? No, I am worried about inflation. That's why I raised the question. But I don't think it'll cause an impact on the business. But he also has a bird's eye view. I'm seeing more demand for technology than at any time during my career. I think that technology has kind of become the basis on which most companies and enterprises and governments do their thing. Take simple examples. Like restaurants, stores would all have fought omni-channel even 2 years ago. Now, because of the pandemic, they all thought they need it to survive. But once they did it, they realized, wait, but that opens up my market. It's actually not more expensive, maybe cheaper to serve my clients this way. And suddenly this has opened up ways of doing things that people hadn't thought about. People in a certain demographic didn't want to do online. Everybody did online over the last 2 years. Countries like India leapfrogged onto e-delivery of everything. So to me, this has opened up an opportunity for technology, the likes of which we have not seen. I think Y2K may be a small approximation of what we're seeing. So I see tech spending heavy even through this environment.
Arvind Krishna speaking to me here at the ADIPEC conference late yesterday. You're probably wondering, what is the CEO of Big Blue doing at an oil and gas conference in the Middle East? He was actually out here to announce a brand new partnership with Amazon. IBM looking to work with Amazon on the energy transition. They say they can lean into capabilities in areas like data, AI and cloud, for example, to help IOCs and NOCs do more to achieve their climate goals. Let's see what happens in that space. Juliana, ultimately, I would say two key takeaways from the conference so far. Number one, oil and gas executives pretty confident, I guess you could say, on the outlook for the oil market recovery, while they are still concerned about inflation and other issues. And number two, they very much recognize that climate is at the center of these conversations now, and they are keen to progress the outcomes from COP26. Exactly how they do that, though, remains to be seen. It's back over to you.
Dan, thank you for your coverage. Really interesting conversations you've brought us there.